Hello, everybody. Today, I'm just going to go quickly through the quantitative research assignments. I realized we had videos here and there, but I wanted to show you kind of an overview, kind of really what this assignment we need from it. So you can see that there is SBS data actually linked, the same data that you're going to use for this assignment. It's also linked above on the Moodle page, so it's linked for all your practices as well, linked under the assignment submission. But I wanted to just walk through each of the analyses that you're going to need to do, okay? So when you're at the bottom of this, bottom of our Moodle page, here's our quantitative research assignment. So I'm going to run through steps 1 through 3 for you. So we're going to need to run 3 frequency analyses. We're going to need to run 2 crosstabs and 1 correlation. Let's run through each of those so you can see step-by-step directions. Start with frequency. Here's the data set. Here's the data set that you need to use, okay? So let's first start with a frequency analysis. We're going to go up to Analyze, go down to Descriptive Statistics, over to Frequencies. We're going to pick a non-demographic variable to analyze. So let's pick the leaders at my company are a diverse group of people, for example. Let's pick that, the first one. Then we're going to go to member statistics. We're going to click mean, median, and mode. Click continue, and then we're going to click OK. Then we're going to get our output. Now we have to describe what this means. Now remember, this is a survey that is administered from the organization to its employees. So I want to know from mean score of 1 to 5, anything in the middle or high or low. So what does this mean? If the leaders at my company are a diverse group of people and 39, let's see, out of the valid percent, 33% agree with the statement, 6.8% strongly agree. So just under 40%, just under half agree with that statement for a mean score of 3.99. What do I want to know from that information? What is important? Well, let's describe it because you're going to be writing this as if you're describing it to me as an organizational leader. So you're going to say, not a lot of people, not an exceptional amount of employees believe that the leadership is diverse in the organization. And maybe here's an implication for that. You just need to describe the data. So you'd say less than 40% agree or strongly agree that the leaders are a diverse group of people with a mean score of 2.99. So this is clearly an area where a low to moderate mean score here in this area means there's not a lot of agreement that the people in this company are a diverse group of people. So that's an example. You're going to do 3 of those. You can do any of those content questions, the core questions, non-demographics. Those are the things that you're going to look for there. And I'll get to exporting all this stuff at the end. Now let's run a crosstab. Let's go down to descriptives again after analyze. Go over to crosstabs. What do we want to look for in the row? I'm going to do for our demographic question, because our crosstabs, we need a demographic question and then a core content. I'm going to do this age recorded generations. That's an interesting one. I'm going to put that as a demographic question in the row. And for the column, let's do I feel left out of my colleagues at work. Remember, we're going to go to cells here. We're going to make sure the counts are observed. We want percentages in rows and total. Click continue. Now let's do this thing. All right. So I've got a cross tabulation for generations, and then I feel left out for my colleagues at work. So now I would explain the differences here. Yes, there's not going to be tons of significant, numbers in each, but just look at the percentage, okay? Because that's what I want you to be able to describe the percentage. So for example, I could say, in Gen X, for instance, let's say 45% of Gen Xers disagree and 27% strongly disagree that they feel left out their colleagues at work, compared to 60% and 14.3% of millennials agreeing and strongly agreeing. And then talk about, well, why is that significant? That means maybe more millennials feel like that disagree that they're left out of colleagues at their work, that they feel that they are connected to their colleagues. Or, for instance, you could say Gen Z 100% disagree compared to 60% of millennials. So more millennials think that they are left out from their colleagues at work. So they're disagreeing that they feel left out, so that they are not left out. So they feel like they are in touch with their colleagues. You could look at combining these numbers too, right? So 53.8% and 38%, that's what would that be? That'd be in the 90s. So 90 or so percent, in the 90s percents here, compared to 45 and 25, which would be closer to 70%. So you can say more baby boomers disagree with this statement than Gen Xers and millennials. So you can look at those differences. So that's an example of how you'd run a cross tabulation. So you see how I get in that, right? Looking at disagree and strongly disagree and agree and strongly agree. You could also look at there, right? So you could say baby boomers, 3.8% agree that they feel left out of work compared to 5% and 2.5% of Gen Xers. So less baby boomers agree that they're left out of their colleagues at work than Gen Xers. Or you could say more millennials agree that they feel left out of their colleagues at work compared to Gen Xers and baby boomers, and cite what those percentages are. So 14.3% agreeing compared to millennials compared to 5% agreeing and 2.5% strongly agreeing of Gen Xers. That's what I want you to describe. So you're going to run two of those, and you want two different demographic variables. So you could do that, and so you could do generations, you could do gender, you could do sexuality. Let me show you how to run for the race category, because the race was a multiple option. Remember, they could select multiple races. So let's go to Analyze, Multiple Response, Define Variable Sets. And you're going to want to define race. So you scroll all the way down, you see what is your race. Select all of those. Click them over in Variables Inset. We're going to click Dichotomies, count value as 1. Name it something like race, recoded on both the name and label. Now we're going to click Add, Close, go back up to Analyze, down to Multiple Responses. Let's run a crosstab with race now. So let's do race recoded in the rows. Maybe let's do that on, I feel comfortable asking my leaders in my workplace for accommodations. So now we have to define the ranges, and we're going to do it from a 1 to 5 because our Likert scales are 1 to 5. So let's do 1 as a minimum, 5 as a maximum. Continue. Let's go up to options. We want percentages for rows and total. Other than that, we're all good on the other ones. Again, so you're running the same analysis, but because it's multiple response, it just looks a little bit differently. Let's click OK there. So now you have a race crosstab for this question. Again, describe the same sort of differences. So examine the table, take some time to look at it. What's an example? I feel comfortable asking my leaders in the workplace for accommodations. So we could look at the difference maybe between white respondents versus African-American, Black respondents. So we could say, we're going to look at count within, we want to look at the count within race recoded. We don't want count of total. We want count of race within. That's the thing we're going to look at most. So we'd say, for here, 50% and 50% of strongly agree for Black respondents. So you could say all Black respondents in this survey agree or strongly agree with this statement that they feel comfortable asking leaders for workplace accommodations versus for, let's say, white respondents, 44.7 and then 25.5% agree versus strongly agree. So you see those differences there on the racial category side. So you could say, well, less white respondents agree with this statement than Black respondents. And so you could talk about less white people feel comfortable asking leaders for workforce accommodations. Why that's the case in this specific organization, who knows? But that's how we can look at these racial differences in these racial categories here. We can look at any of these scales as key differences on why this might be the case. Okay, so that's how you do the multiple response answer if you want to analyze the race variable as well. Finally, you're going to need to, so you're going to run two crosstabs. You need to run one correlation analysis. So let's go up to Analyze again, all the way down to Correlate. The second bivariate. Pick whatever things you want to examine for correlation. Let's do, I feel like I belong at my company as 1. And let's do the other. Let me make sure I can find a statistically significant one. Let's do bias or discrimination is not tolerated in my organization. Now, we want to make sure down at the bottom left, Pearson is selected. The significance is 2-tailed, not 1-tailed, because we're testing both directions. Now we want to go down in the upper right to confidence intervals. Click, make sure that you're estimating the confidence interval at 95%. Continue, and OK. So now here, we're going to see that we have a correlation. And remember, you want to look at, as you read the box, you don't want to look at, I feel like I belong at my company, correlated with, I feel like I belong at my company. That gives you useless information. What you want to look at is bias or discrimination not tolerated in my workplace, and I feel like I belong at my company at your two different variables. So first, remember, it's a three-step process. Let's go back to the assignment. You need to discuss and test the direction of the relationship. Is it positive, negative, or none? Well, for this one, it's a positive relationship because this is a positive number here. This 484 is a positive. It was a negative number, which you might find it'd be a negative relationship, okay? That's where you'd find that information. The strength of the relationship. Hint, anything less than 0.3 is weak, 0.3 to 0.5 is moderate, and 0.5 and above is strong. So this is 0.484. That's in between 0.3 and 0.5, so that's a moderately strong relationship. The level of significance. So this is significance at the 0.01 level. So see how this says, is it 0.1, 0.05, or 0.01? This is significant at the 0.01 level. So this is statistically significant at the 0.01 level. That's how you would respond to that. So how you would describe this, you'd say this is, again, going from here, this exact interpretation under the directions. The direction, well, this is a positive relationship. It is a moderately strong relationship at 0.484 in between 0.3 and 0.5, and it is statistically significant at the 0.01 level. It has all that information for you here. And then you would identify what are the implications there. Well, the implications are that since these things are moderately strongly correlated and positively correlated, that as more people agree that bias or discrimination is not tolerated in their organizations, those same people feel more like they belong at their company. So implications for the organization would be reducing bias means people feel like they belong at their company more, which then can reduce turnover and employees leaving and improve employee satisfaction, all those things. So that's how you're going to interpret and run those analyses. So that's all those are all the directions. There's other things in here like your recommendations, future steps. You're going to have to describe, right? Actually explain the analyses to me, like I don't know how to read them. But let me show you how to export this output for ease as well. So go all over to the top left, right up here, click the word output. Right click, go down to export, do it in Excel doc or a Word doc, whatever that you prefer. Go down here to browse under file name, and let's do this under downloads, just assignment output, assignment SPSS output. And we're going to save that, and now we're going to click OK, and we're going to export it. And so you let that process, might take a minute or so, might take a few seconds. Let's go down to our downloads now and assignment SPS output. Let's take a look at what this looks like. Here it is. Here's our output. So now we have our frequency, we have our crosstab. Again, remember, you need to do 3 frequencies and 1 crosstab. And then we also have, 3 frequencies, 2 crosstabs, and our 1 correlation here as well. So that's going to be really easy for you. You can make these into prettier looking tables as well. That is absolutely something you can do. Some bonus points there for you. But you can also just copy and paste this and post it into the assignment and then explain it that way. So that is really it. Those are the directions. I just want to make sure you had some succinct directions on the assignment. It's going to be a lot easier now to make sure you can just follow this. So please let me know if you have any questions. If you want to go over any of these materials, anything's not clear, happy to meet one-on-one or even in group settings. Thanks, everybody.